Hey, Real Nerds listeners, your favorite host Ryan here to remind you that social media is great. How great is it? There's many ways you can find the Real Nerds on social media. You can download us on iTunes. You can listen to us streaming on Stitcher Radio. You can call us 720-6nerds5. Aw man, our website is so cool. You can visit our website, realnerdspodcast.com. You want to leave some fan mail? Oh, that's so easy, realnerds@gmail.com. Twitter, we got it, @real_nerds. You can even like us on Facebook. Thank you so much, and hey, enjoy the show. Welcome to Real Nerds at Denver Comic-Con 2015. We hope you enjoy the following interview. Hi, I'm Ryan at Denver Comic-Con 2015, and I'm with the amazing Marguerite Bennett. Hi, Marguerite. How are you?
I'm great. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, I was first introduced to you because I'm a huge Barbara Gordon fan.
Hey.
And, your Batgirl 30 is maybe the coolest single issue of Batgirl ever.
Thank you.
Because
it's very kind of you.
Oh, thank you. Because it takes a totally different turn from what you're... Because Batgirl was, like, dark, but this is, the cult and Nightmare Man, and it was just so cool. So how do ideas like that come to you for Batgirl? Because it's not normally what she's involved in.
Yeah, that was actually, it was sort of an interesting path that story took, because when I first sort of auditioned and went through my formal hiring process at DC, one of the things that they wanted to see was, how quickly could I come up with plot and script, and how could I work with editors and with an art team. And so I wrote sort of an inventory issue for Batgirl, and that became sort of, the framework for the story that we ultimately ran. It was sort of peculiar because it just happened to come, after Forever Evil, and so, we had this, like, enormous, crunch with, like, the loss of Nightwing. And so it was, trying to, weave together these three stories, with Barbara Gordon, and equate, this fear and this grief with being, sort of like locked in your mind, having these cyclical patterns of thought, cyclical patterns of behavior as you sort of like lose yourself in your grief and in your depression. And so we, constructed that with this house, of this thing that, feeling it's invading your mind. So in a way, like the Midnight Man was representative of that grief and that depression, of hunting her through this trapped space, and how she wound up overcoming it and processing her grief, and being able to move on and continue with her heroics.
So is Batgirl your favorite DC hero? Because she's mine.
I adore her. Kate Kane actually takes the cake.
Really? I'm a Barbara Gordon fan, but hey, that's all right.
She's tremendous.
And you also wrote the Zero Year Batgirl.
Yep.
So was that kind of fun because it's a little more freeing on what you could do with the story?
It was terrifying because, like, I'm such a huge Gail Simone fan.
Yeah.
One of the whole reasons that I'm here is because, I grew up on her stories, and, it was like, she can do it, like, one day I'll be able to also. And so, I went back through, all the issues that she had written, and it was sort of like, it was so funny looking at the way that my trades are sort of like pin cushions with Post-it notes. Okay, here's this detail here, here's this detail here. How do we build, an origin story that's worthy of Barbara? Or not an origin story, but this moment, that came before the cowl. Where she could discover this ability within herself. So it was a lot of pressure, but a lot of fun.
No, it fit right into that arc, though, because, it's always scary, but also cool what DC is doing is they always kind of do a month where they do something different.
Yes,
But it came right in the middle of Wanted.
Yeah.
And so you're like, what's going to happen with her brother? And then you get a cool little backstory with it as well. So it fit in very well.
I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah. Sorry, I totally skipped over because I was so excited to talk about Batgirl. Tell us, a little bit about yourself and why you love comics.
Oh, sure. Well, I first fell in love with comics because of Batman the Animated Series when I was 5 years old, actually.
You didn't. I cried. I did Kevin Conroy's panel last year.
Oh, goodness.
And when he introduced himself, he says, "Hi, Ryan." I was like, oh my gosh.
No.
My heart, skipped a beat.
I wouldn't have been able to stand
I know, right?
I wouldn't have been able to meet his eyes, Lord. I completely fell in love with this, this dark, entrancing world. So much of the animation that we give to children is so scrubbed and sanitized and brightly colored, and there was this element of danger that was just completely thrilling, that just sort of really captured my imagination. And, sort of like the funny detail in all this is the fact that I wildly misinterpreted what Batman was about for the first year that I was watching that series. Just from, just the opening, the opening credits. Just this rich noir world, just seeing Batman for the first time, how intimidating and how ferocious he looked. The tactics that he used, I assumed he was a villain. I assumed he was a villain who was atoning for his past misdeeds by rounding up all the other villains. That, he was really no better than they, but that he had this crisis of conscience. I have no idea where exactly I got this idea. But that just, sort of informed my outlook on the character for probably the following year, before I actually saw, an episode that dealt with, the murder of the Waynes. So I started out my career in comics with misbegotten 5-year-old fan fiction.
And that's okay. So is it hard for a young lady like yourself to break into comics, or is it more open now?
It depends on how you're measuring it, frankly. The rampant institutionalized sexism, of previous decades has, peeled back a lot of ways. However, with the uptick in social media, it exposes you to different kinds of sexism and a different kind of misogyny. So it's sort of difficult to evaluate, if it's gotten better or worse. In, I want to say 1987, there were 13 female creatives working with DC. When they launched the New 52, there was Gail Simone and Nicola. And so it changes, and it goes up and down and back and forth in different ways. And I just try to remember that, if we want to strive for a form of equality within this art, within this community, it's going to take active concentration and active determination. You think about where women's rights were in the 20s, where they'd attained suffrage, where they were leaving the house, smoking, dancing, cutting their hair, becoming artists, becoming composers, having a freedom to explore their sexuality. And then you see where they were in the 50s, that all those freedoms were snatched away and stripped away one by one until they were turned back, into these domestic accessories. Or you look at things that happen more quickly, like the Iranian Revolution, where we had women doctors, women lawyers, women with this great sense of freedom. And then, due to the regime change, those rights went away. But you can't just passively assume that there's going to be improvement. It's going to take the intense labor of this entire community to be able to make a better world for our daughters.
And do you think? I think it's kind of sad that we live in a world like that, where, I didn't even know you were a female writer until I opened up the book and I was reading, and I was like, wow, she really, the author really understands Batgirl. And then I went back and I flipped back, and I'm like, oh, it's not even Gail Simone, it's another female. And so that's. And I think, too, with much social media, it's scary because it gives anonymity to someone being not nice to you. And I hope you don't get that, because your comments are wonderful.
Oh, bless.
And so, if they don't know what they're talking about. But let's shift to the stuff you're working on. So, DC Bombshells.
Yes.
I'm really excited about this one because it seems like it's inspired by the radical covers that everybody has. And see, I'll also show you that I'm not, lying to you. Look, that's my wallet. My wallet is Batgirl.
Wonderful.
As Bombshell. So how did that come about, and what's the story? And
oh, goodness. So, Aunt Lucia did these phenomenal covers, for the variants that they ran last year, and, we had these just, gorgeous, statues and collectibles, and, and shirts and wallets and everything else. And so I made no secret of, how enchanted I was by this art, and, it just really captured my imagination. And so when DC started, to think the idea of, maybe, this could become like a proper series, Jim Chadwick, our wonderful editor, approached me, and I could not say yes fast enough. I mean, it was just, I was over the moon when he approached me for it. And from there, we've been working since last September, and so we're creating this complete alternate history World War II with the conceit that the heroines came first. Like the very first page of our very first issue has this young, well-dressed couple out with their little boy, for a night stroll, and you can see them going to towards a movie theater, you see that the movie theater, the poster is Zorro, and you see a shape come in from the shadows behind them, and this gangster pops out with a Tommy gun, and we've got this bombastic announcer going over, and it's suddenly from the shadows, and then Batwoman crashes down and prevents the murder of the Waynes, prevents the creation of Batman, and with that we sweep this complete new timeline that goes in place where the heroines came first, the heroines defined the century. None of them are derivative from their male counterparts, and how the DC universe changes because of that. And so with how the publication style is going to work, if you're familiar with Injustice, is that every Wednesday you're going to have a 10-page story, and on the last Wednesday of the month it's going to be collected in a full 30-page print version. And so each of our 10-page stories are going to focus on a different heroine. So our first is Batwoman, our second is Wonder Woman, our third is Supergirl, and from there we're going to to expand the other heroines. And we wanted to make sure that this was a series that could appeal to everyone. So with Batwoman, it's this action-adventure story. With Wonder Woman, it's a war story. With Supergirl, it's a propaganda film. With Mira, it's a romance. With Hawkgirl, it's this Indiana Jones, style. And with Vixen, it's a rebellion. With Catwoman, it's a heist. With Zatanna, it's a Hammer film. And, so we wanted to create, this complete and authentic world through all these different genres, through the art and the media that were being used in that era.
So how exciting is it to write that, though? Because I can feel your excitement. I'm getting super excited about it because I love the character
so much.
And when I read that you were writing it, I was like, oh my god, it's meant. It's meant to be.
I am so happy. I mean, I really am. So it's so easy to become resentful of things in comics, despite the fact that we work in such a wonderful art form and a wonderful community. But this is one of the things that I can say with a clear conscience has been such a joy. And I cannot be, be grateful enough that I get this opportunity.
Hey, Marguerite, thanks for taking time to talk to me today. It's such an honor. It really is. Are you here tomorrow?
I am,
Cool. I'm going to bring my Batgirls for you to sign because
definitely.
I'm going to be all nerdy again. I appreciate the time, and you're wonderful, and I'm so glad I got to meet you, and good luck on Bombshells. I can't wait to read it.
I can't wait to share it with the world.
Thank you, Marguerite. That's awesome. Thank you for listening to this exclusive Real Nerds interview at Denver Comic-Con 2015, and we'll see you next year. Visit our website, realnerdspodcast.com. You can tweet us at real_nerds. You can email us even, realnerds@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook. Hey, stream us on Stitcher. You want to call us? 720-6nerds5. And download us on iTunes. Just search Real Nerds. Thank you, Joe Kempter, for the wonderful voiceover, and also Spark Mandrill for the wonderful late-night jazz smooth sounds of movies. You can find him on SoundCloud. This has been a Nebulous Visions production.